The growl started low, a rumble that vibrated through the dirt of the canine training yard at Naval Base San Diego like distant thunder. Then it multiplied. 47 military working dogs, Belgian Malinois bred for aggression, German Shepherds trained to kill on command, Dutch Shepherds that could track a man across 3 miles of desert, all vocalizing at once. The sound rolled across the 200 by 300-foot facility like a living wall of threat. Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cassian gripped the microphone clipped to his tactical vest, his face flushing red beneath the California sun. Who authorized a civilian in the restricted training zone? A woman stood in the center of the tactical simulation area, small, maybe 5'4", wearing the faded blue uniform of the facility maintenance crew. She held a mop in one hand, a bucket in the other. The early morning sun, 0630 hours, cast her shadow long across the dust and dirt that covered the training ground. Around the perimeter, more than 50 military personnel had frozen mid-task. Trainers, students, administrative staff, contractors, all eyes on the scene unfolding before them. Cassian strode forward, his boots striking the ground with deliberate force. I asked you a question. This is a tactical training area. Maintenance personnel are not authorized during active sessions. Remove yourself immediately. The woman didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, mop in hand, as still as a statue. I'm talking to you, Cassian closed the distance, his hand rising to shove her shoulder. Are you deaf or just... 47 dogs moved as one. No barking now, no growling, just fluid synchronized motion. Every dog, from the 65-pound Malinois to the 90-pound Shepherds, positioned themselves between Cassian and the woman. A semicircle of muscle and teeth, an absolute stillness. Their eyes locked on Cassian, ears forward, bodies coiled, not aggressive, not submissive, something else, something that made the hair on the back of every witness's neck stand straight up. Cassian jerked backward, his hand dropping. What the hell? Knox, tight end, Rex, heel now. Not one dog moved. Staff Sergeant Dylan Fletcher sprinted across the yard from the obstacle course, his pristine trainer's uniform catching dust with each step. Sir, I don't understand this. These dogs have never refused a direct command. They're trained to... I know how they're trained, Cassian's voice cracked slightly. I wrote half the protocols for this facility. Order them to stand down. Fletcher squared his shoulders, projecting the command voice they taught in every handler course. Tighten, down, Knox, heel, all dogs return to kennels. 47 dogs remained motionless. Titan, the massive Malinois with a scar across his muzzle from where he'd torn through chain-link fencing during a training accident, the dog that had sent 3 trainers to medical over the past 2 years, lowered himself to the ground in front of the woman, his head pressed against the dirt, his entire body flattened in a posture of complete submission. Holy cow, someone whispered from the sidelines. Cassian turned his glare on the woman. What did you do to them? What are you hiding? She didn't answer, didn't even look at him. Her eyes tracked across the dogs with the kind of assessment that comes from years of pattern recognition. Not fear, not confusion, evaluation. Search her, Cassian snapped. Check for food, electronic devices, anything that could influence animal behavior. 2 trainers moved forward hesitantly. The dogs shifted, maintaining their protective formation, but allowing the approach. They found nothing. No treats, no whistles, no electronic training collars. Just a woman in a maintenance uniform with empty pockets and calloused hands. Lieutenant Sapphire Ronan appeared from the administrative building, her crisp officer's uniform and perfectly styled hair a sharp contrast to the dusty chaos of the training yard. She took in the scene with a practiced smirk. The cleaning lady causing trouble? How unexpected. Her voice dripped with the kind of contempt reserved for people she considered beneath notice. Perhaps she's lost. Someone should escort her back to where she belongs, preferably off this base entirely. The words hung in the air. Several trainers exchanged glances. Seaman Daisy Grant, barely 23, fresh from handler school, with stars still in her eyes, bit her lip and looked away. Dylan circled the woman slowly, studying the dog's formation. Sir, permission to attempt treat-based recall? Granted. Dylan produced a handful of freeze-dried liver treats from his training pouch. High-value rewards, the kind that could call a dog off prey drive in the middle of a chase. He held them up, let the scent carry on the morning breeze. "Dogs, come, treat!" Not one ear twitched, not one nose lifted. 47 sets of eyes remained locked on Cassian with unblinking focus. The woman set down her mop. The movement was economical, precise. She straightened, and something in her posture changed. Her shoulders squared, her feet positioned themselves shoulder-width apart. Her hands rested at her sides with the thumbs aligned with the seams of her uniform pants. Parade rest. The stance drilled into military personnel until it becomes unconscious, until the body defaults to it without thought. Nobody seemed to notice except Master Chief Arthur Fraser, watching from the equipment shed. His weathered face creased into a frown. Chief Petty Officer Caleb Kingsley jogged up from the logistics building, tablet in hand. "Sir, this is a security issue. She could be using subliminal training we're not aware of. Pheromones, ultrasonic frequencies. We should tag her as a potential threat and remove her from the facility entirely." Cassian nodded sharply. "Agreed. Someone get Colonel Forrester down here. I want this documented." Colonel James Forrester arrived 7 minutes later. At 58, he moved with the careful deliberation of a man whose body had been through 2 decades of SEAL training and 12 years of desk work. He stood at the edge of the training yard, arms crossed, observing without interference. His face revealed nothing. Before we continue with what happened next, if this story of hidden strength and unexpected respect is pulling you in, don't let the algorithm decide when you see the ending. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We post 3 military stories every week that reveal the truth behind rank, respect, and the warriors who never advertise their service. This channel exists because of viewers like you, who understand that real power doesn't need to prove itself. Subscribe now, because what happens in the next 15 minutes will change everything you think you know about authority and loyalty. Cassian approached the woman again, keeping his distance from the wall of dogs. "If you're so innocent in all this, prove it. Make them sit." For the first time, the woman looked directly at him. Her eyes were green, flat, the kind of eyes that have seen things and filed them away in places civilians don't have access to. She held his gaze for 3 seconds. Then she raised her right hand, made a gesture, palm flat, fingers together, a sharp downward motion followed by a twist of the wrist. Nothing like the NATO standardized hand signals taught in every military working dog program in the United States. Every dog sat. Perfect synchronization, perfect form, haunches on the ground, chests forward, eyes still locked forward in guard position. Dylan's jaw went slack. "That's not in our manual. That's not in any manual. Where did you learn that signal?" The woman lowered her hand, said nothing. Sapphire laughed from her position near the admin building. "Lucky guess. Anyone can make dogs sit. My nephew does it with his golden retriever. Next you'll tell me she can make them roll over too." She examined her nails, the picture of board superiority. "Can we please get back to actual training? Some of us have real work to do." Daisy, standing next to a training dummy, leaned toward another young handler. "Did you see how clean that was? All 47 dogs responded like they were one organism. I've never seen synchronization like that outside of demonstration teams." Cassian's face darkened. "Fine. You want to play handler? Let's see how far this parlor trick goes. Order them into defensive perimeter formation." It was a test designed to fail. Defensive perimeter was an advanced tactical formation requiring dogs to position themselves in a protective diamond pattern with overlapping fields of coverage. It took months to train, required constant reinforcement. Civilian handlers never learned it because it had zero application outside military operations. The woman didn't hesitate. She brought 3 fingers to her lips and produced a sound, not quite a whistle, something lower and more modulated. 2 short bursts followed by 1 sustained note, then a hand signal, fist closed, opened with fingers spreading in 4 directions, closed again. The dogs flowed into formation like water finding its level. 4 dogs at cardinal points, 4 more at the diagonal positions, the remaining 39 filling gaps in perfect spacing to create an interlocking defensive grid. The kind of formation used in hostile territory when a handler needed 360-degree protection. Arthur Fraser stepped out from the equipment shed. His boots crunched on gravel as he crossed the yard, his eyes never leaving the formation. "That's combat deployment formation. That's what we used in Fallujah when we expected ambush from multiple vectors." His voice carried the rough edge of someone who had breathed too much smoke and sand. Where the hell did you learn that? The woman remained silent. Captain Hugo Raymond emerged from the veterinary clinic, medical bag slung over one shoulder. What's all the commotion? I have 3 dogs with training injuries that need attention. Can we not have a circus in the middle of the... He stopped, taking in the formation. What am I looking at? That's what we're trying to figure out, sir, Cassian said through clenched teeth. Caleb appeared at Cassian's elbow, voice low and insinuating. Sir, what if she's using illegal electronic devices? Hidden ultrasonics that we can't detect? There are black market training tools from overseas. She could be compromising our dogs' conditioning, making them vulnerable to foreign signals. This could be a security breach we don't fully understand yet. Cassian seized on it. Strip search. Female officer to conduct it. I want every inch of her and her equipment examined. If she's carrying anything at all, I want it documented. Sapphire's expression flickered with something like pleasure. I'll handle it. Come with me. She gestured toward the admin building. Let's see what our mysterious cleaning lady is really hiding under that uniform. The woman followed without protest. The dogs held formation until she disappeared through the door, then broke and followed, a stream of muscle and fur flowing across the yard in perfect silence. 15 minutes later, Sapphire returned alone, her expression sour. Nothing. She's clean, no devices, no treats, no drugs, just regulation underwear and a body that looks like it's been through a garbage disposal. What do you mean? Forrester asked, his first words since arriving. Sapphire shrugged. Scars, old ones, burns, looks like, surgical marks. The kind of thing you'd see on someone who's been in accidents, multiple accidents, but nothing relevant to this situation. Dylan stepped forward, his instructor badge catching the light. Okay, if you're legitimate, if this is all just some bizarre coincidence, then let's test real skill. Basic handler competency. Disassemble an M4 carbine, blindfolded. It was a power move. Weapon handling had nothing to do with K9 work, but it was a standard skill test for military personnel. A way to prove basic competency and discipline. Civilians couldn't do it, maintenance workers definitely couldn't do it. And doing it blindfolded was a demonstration standard that separated instructors from students. Petty Officer Liam Carter stood near the armory entrance, arms crossed. He muttered to Daisy, "She won't be able to. That's Delta-level training. She's going to embarrass herself, and maybe we can all get back to work." The woman nodded once, extended her hand. Dylan placed an M4 carbine in her grip and tied a black cloth over her eyes. The training yard went quiet. 50-plus personnel watching, phones coming out, someone recording. The woman's hands moved, 42 seconds to disassemble, every component separated with practiced economy. Magazine release, bolt catch, charging handle, upper and lower receiver pins, buffer spring, bolt carrier group, each piece placed in precise order on the ground in front of her. 38 seconds to reassemble. Her fingers worked without hesitation. No fumbling, no false starts. When she finished, she performed a functions check. Charging handle pulled, trigger pressed, safety selector tested, all by touch. She removed the blindfold and handed the weapon back to Dylan without a word. Nobody spoke. Dylan's hands shook slightly as he took the rifle. That's instructor-level performance. That's what we teach our advanced courses after 6 months of daily training. His voice cracked. Who trained you? The woman's hands showed themselves in the gesture of returning the weapon. Calluses along the thumb web, thickened skin on the fingertips, the kind of wear patterns that come from thousands of hours of weapon manipulation, scars across the knuckles, uniform coverage suggesting repetitive impact rather than random injury. She didn't answer Dylan's question. Instead, she removed the blindfold slowly, folded it precisely, and held it out. Her eyes met his with that same flat assessment. Then she turned and picked up her mop. Cassian's face had gone from red to purple. Answer the question. Where did you learn weapons handling? YouTube tutorials, sir. Her voice was quiet, steady, completely sincere in tone, and utterly unconvincing in content. A ripple of murmurs spread through the watching crowd. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else whispered something about classified training. Hugo stepped forward, his medical bag hitting the ground with a thud. Okay, fine. Weapons training is one thing. Let me try something in my field. Scenario: military working dog shows signs of hypovolemic shock following training accident. Rapid breathing, pale gums, weak pulse. You're in the field, no vet immediately available. What do you do? It was a trick question. Civilian first aid for dogs was basic. Check breathing, keep warm, get to a vet. Military field protocols were different. Combat veterinary medicine assumed resource scarcity and immediate threat environments. The woman didn't pause. Establish airway patency. Assess breathing rate and quality. Check circulation via capillary refill time and pulse strength. Elevate hindquarters 30 degrees to maintain cerebral perfusion. Prevent heat loss with thermal blankets or body heat. Establish intravenous access if qualified and supplies available. Administer crystalloid fluids if shock is confirmed. Monitor for... She stopped. Her eyes flickered. Awareness crossing her face that she'd said too much. Hugo's expression shifted from skeptical to stunned. That's field trauma protocol. That's what we teach combat medics deploying with K9 units. That's not something you learn from Google. He moved closer, studying her face. That's protocol for handling casualties under fire when you can't evacuate immediately. From the communications shack near the admin building, Petty Officer Willow Flynn looked up from her console. She'd been monitoring radio channels, but the words floating across the yard made her pause. Field trauma protocol, K9 casualties. She knew those terms. She'd been trained on those procedures during her combat deployment with a Marine unit in Afghanistan. She began paying closer attention. Forrester moved forward from his observation position, his stride purposeful. "Miss." His voice carried command presence, the kind that makes people stand straighter without realizing it. "What did you say your name was?" The woman set down her mop again, that same economical movement. "Fern, sir. Fern Archer." Full name, for the record. Fern Archer, maintenance worker. Employed here 3 months. Caleb was already moving, tablet in hand. "I'll run her background. See what we're really dealing with." He disappeared into the admin building, fingers flying across the screen. Ivan Foster appeared from the kennels. At 65, he moved with the careful deliberation of someone whose joints had logged too many miles, but whose mind remained sharp. He was a legend among K9 handlers, 40 years in the field, retired now, but still consulting on difficult cases. He stopped at the edge of the yard, squinting at Fern across the distance, his head tilted, recognition flickering like a faulty light bulb. "Something familiar about her," he muttered. "Can't place it." Sapphire hadn't moved from her position near the admin building. Now she sighed dramatically. "Oh, please. She's a janitor who watched some YouTube videos and has good muscle memory. Can we please move on? Some of us have actual responsibilities." She checked her watch with exaggerated care. "I have a scheduling meeting in 20 minutes, and I'd rather not smell like dog yard when I attend." The casual contempt in her voice made several people wince. Daisy looked at the ground, her cheeks flushing. Cassian ignored her. His focus remained locked on Fern. "I want to know how a cleaning lady knows SEAL medic protocols. I want to know why 47 trained military dogs refuse to leave her side. And I want to know why you're standing here pretending to be someone you're not." Caleb emerged from the admin building at a jog, tablet extended. "Got something, sir? Fern Archer. Service record. United States Army Reserve. Military occupational specialty. 88 Mike. Motor transport operator. Single deployment, Iraq, 2011 to 2012. Honorable discharge." Cassian grabbed the tablet, scanned the information. "So, you did serve. Why hide it?" Fern's expression didn't change. "I didn't hide anything. You didn't ask." "Motor transport?" Dylan sounded confused. "You drove trucks? That explains nothing. You don't learn K9 handling driving convoy routes. You don't learn advanced weapons manipulation. You don't learn combat veterinary medicine." Arthur pulled Dylan aside, voice low but carrying in the morning stillness. "Something's wrong with this picture. That diamond formation she deployed? I've been training dogs for 28 years. I've worked with Army, Marines, Air Force, and Navy programs. That formation isn't publicly documented anywhere. It's used by special operations units in classified deployments." He glanced back at Fern. "Motor transport doesn't get that training. Nobody gets that training unless they're operating in extremely specific units." Lieutenant Commander Naomi Jasper strode across the yard from the intelligence building. At 44, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew things other people didn't. She held a tablet with a bright red classified marking across the screen. Her face was serious. She went directly to Forrester, showed him the screen, and whispered something that made his eyes widen. Forrester shook his head slowly. "Verify the photo. Cross-reference with facial recognition. I need to be absolutely certain before we proceed." Naomi nodded and stepped away, fingers working the tablet. Forrester approached Fern with more care now, less confrontation, more evaluation. "Ma'am, I need to ask you directly. What unit were you actually assigned to during your deployment?" Before Fern could respond, before anyone could move, the facility alarm screamed to life. 3 short bursts. Emergency signal. Hugo's radio crackled with urgent voices overlapping each other in a chaos of information. "Medical emergency! Dog down at obstacle course. Severe trauma. Need veterinary response immediately." Hugo grabbed his bag and ran. Half the training yard personnel followed. Cassian started after them, then turned back to keep eyes on Fern. He didn't need to worry about her running. She was already gone, sprinting toward the obstacle course with a speed that seemed impossible for someone her size. The 47 dogs flowed after her in formation, maintaining the defensive diamond even at a full run. The precision was hypnotic, unnatural, like watching a flock of birds move as a single organism. Arthur watched them go, his weathered face creased with something between awe and fear. "I've never seen that before, never in 4 decades of handling. Dogs don't maintain tactical formation during emergency response. The stress breaks discipline, but those dogs..." He trailed off. Dylan finished the thought. Those dogs aren't following training, they're following her. The radio protocols Fern would use in the emergency weren't standard civilian frequencies. They were encrypted military channels that required specialized communication devices, the kind that cost upwards of $3,000 and featured frequency hopping, burst transmission, and tactical mesh networking. These tactical communication systems allowed special operations teams to coordinate across hostile territory without interception, using satellite uplinks and encrypted voice with less than 50 millisecond latency. The technology that kept SEAL teams connected in Kandahar and Fallujah now protects first responders, search and rescue teams, and security professionals who need communications that simply cannot fail when lives are on the line. Everyone ran toward the obstacle course. The scene that greeted them would shatter every assumption they'd made about the quiet woman with the mop. Rex, a 4-year-old German Shepherd with a track record of perfect performance, lay trapped beneath a collapsed A-frame obstacle. The structure, designed to support up to 300 pounds, had failed catastrophically. Steel framework pinned the dog's hindquarters. Blood spread across the dirt from a deep laceration on his left rear leg. His breathing came fast and shallow. His gums had already started losing color. Classic signs of traumatic shock progressing rapidly. Hugo skidded to a stop, medical bag hitting the ground. He was reaching for supplies when Fern dropped to her knees beside Rex. Her hands moved, not the fumbling of a civilian trying to help, not even the competent movements of a trained first responder. Her hands moved with the precision of someone who'd performed these exact actions under pressure so many times that conscious thought no longer factored into the equation. 5 seconds. That's how long it took her to complete the primary assessment. Airway clear, she'd checked by gently opening Rex's mouth and visually confirming. Breathing rapid but adequate, her hand on his chest, counting. Circulation compromised, her fingers on his femoral artery, feeling the weak, thready pulse. She spoke without looking up. Her voice had changed, no longer quiet and deferential. Command voice, the kind that makes people obey before they think. "I need pressure on the femoral artery. Ice packs from medical, gauze, hemostatic agent, intravenous catheter kit. Move." People scattered to obey before realizing they'd just taken orders from the maintenance worker. Hugo reached for his bag. "I'll handle the..." "No time." Fern already had the IV kit in hand. She found the cephalic vein on the first attempt. No palpating, no searching, just direct insertion. Had the line placed and secured in 12 seconds. Drew blood for a quick hematocrit check, even as she applied pressure to the wound site with her other hand. Her movements were ambidextrous, equally skilled with both hands. The kind of capability that only comes from training specifically designed to maintain function if one hand is compromised. She grabbed Hugo's radio without asking permission, switched it to a different frequency. The encrypted channel that nobody on base should have known existed. Tango 7 Mike, requesting immediate medevac protocol for K9 casualty, trauma consistent with penetrating wound, estimated blood loss 500 milliliters, showing early decompensation. Coordinates 3, 2.7, 158 north, 117.1563 west. Advise status. In the communications shack, Willow Flynn's hands froze over her keyboard. That frequency, that call sign. She'd heard it exactly once during her deployment, when a classified unit had crossed paths with her Marine convoy. The operator had used that same protocol format, that same clinical precision in describing casualties. She grabbed her supervisor's arm. "Sir, that's a JSOC frequency. Joint Special Operations Command. That's not accessible to base personnel. That's not accessible to most of the military. How does she have access to that channel?" Hugo tried to take back his radio. "You can't use military emergency frequencies without authorization. You're contaminating." Cassian arrived at the scene, pushing through the crowd. "What's happening? Who gave orders to—" He saw Fern working on Rex, saw the IV line, saw the professional wound management. His hand shot out to grab her shoulder. "Stop. You're not authorized to provide veterinary care. Step away before you—" He yanked her backward. Her shirt caught on the collapsed obstacle frame. Old fabric, worn thin from months of industrial washing. It tore, not just a small rip. The entire back panel separated from collar to hem. The world stopped. Not metaphorically, not in the poetic sense. Literally. Every person within visual range froze mid-motion, mouths open, eyes locked, phones coming up to capture what they were seeing. Fern's back was a canvas. At the top, spanning her shoulder blades, the Naval Special Warfare Trident, the SEAL insignia that every operator earns after surviving 24 months of the hardest training in the American military. But this one was modified, unique, a canine paw print integrated into the eagle's body, the anchor wrapped with a tactical lead, details that didn't exist in standard SEAL insignia. Below that, 12 paw prints arranged in 3 rows of 4. Each print contained a date written in tiny script: 2009, 2011, 2013, years spanning nearly a decade. Each paw print rendered in different ink, some faded, some dark, some with scar tissue disrupting the lines. Below that, geographic coordinates rendered in precise military format: 34.5, 333 degrees north, 69.1333 degrees east, 33.3152 degrees north, 44.3661 degrees east. Anyone with basic geographic knowledge would recognize them instantly. Kabul, Afghanistan, Baghdad, Iraq. And at the base of her spine, in script that looked like it had been carved rather than tattooed: Silent Service, Eternal Watch, Ghost Unit 7. Beneath the tattoo, crossing through the ink in white lines of scar tissue, surgical marks. The distinctive pattern of shrapnel extraction, IED blast signature. The kind of scars that come from being too close to an explosion and surviving only because someone got you to a surgical table fast enough. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then Daisy gasped, loud enough to break the spell. "Oh my God." Colonel James Forrester's reaction was instantaneous. His back straightened. His heels came together. His right hand rose in the sharpest, most precise salute any of the witnesses had ever seen. His hand trembled. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Master Chief." The title hit like a physical force. Master Chief Petty Officer. The highest enlisted rank in the Naval Special Warfare community. The rank that takes minimum 15 years of exemplary service to achieve. The rank that nobody uses unless they've earned it through blood and performance. If you're as stunned as everyone in that training yard right now, do me a favor. Pause for 2 seconds and smash that like button. It tells YouTube to show this story to more people who appreciate real military culture and the bonds that go deeper than rank or uniform. Your like literally keeps this channel alive. Hit it now, then let's see what she does next that makes the entire facility question everything. Fern turned slowly. Her hands still held pressure on Rex's wound. Blood covered her fingers. Her face showed no emotion, just that same flat assessment she'd used since the beginning. Cassian stumbled backward. The torn fabric still clutched in his hand. His mouth worked, but no sound emerged. His face drained of color so fast it looked like someone had opened a valve. Dylan dropped his clipboard. The sound of it hitting the dirt was loud in the absolute silence. Ghost Unit? But those are legends. Stories. They don't actually exist. They can't exist. His voice climbed an octave. Can they? Sapphire had gone white as paper. Her perfectly styled hair and crisp uniform suddenly looked ridiculous. Costume rather than authority. She backed away slowly, one hand pressed to her mouth, hyperventilating audibly. Hugo set down his medical kit with careful precision. Straightened, brought himself to attention, saluted. "Master Chief Petty Officer, I apologize for my disrespect, ma'am." His voice was steady, but his eyes were wide. "I should have recognized the signs." Caleb had dropped his tablet entirely. The screen cracked when it hit the ground. His face cycled through expressions: shock, denial, horror, understanding. "I ran a background check on a DevGru operator. Oh no. Oh no, no, no." He was talking to himself, voice climbing toward panic. Around the perimeter, 50-plus personnel responded in a wave. Some saluted, some just stared. Phones were everywhere now, recording, photographing. The screenshot that would circulate through military social media for months was being captured in real time. Arthur Fraser stood with tears streaming down his weathered face. He didn't salute. Civilians don't salute. But he stood at attention, with his hand over his heart. I knew I recognized something. 28 years, and I've never seen anything like this. His voice broke. "You're real. Ghost Unit is real." Ivan Foster pushed through the crowd, moving faster than his age should have allowed. He stopped 10 feet from Fern, his entire body shaking. Fallujah. 2010. Hotel company got pinned down in the industrial district. 6 handlers, 6 dogs, ambush from 3 sides. "We lost." He couldn't finish. His hands covered his face. Everyone said the ghost handler went in. Everyone said she got 3 handlers out. They said 6 dogs died holding the line while she evacuated the wounded. He looked up, tears on his cheeks. "That was you. Holy cow. That was you." Liam stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "My brother, Petty Officer Marcus Carter. He served with Naval Special Warfare Support Activity. He told me stories about a handler who went into an ambush zone to extract wounded. He said she carried a 90-pound Malinois 2 miles through enemy fire because she refused to leave anyone behind. He said," Liam's voice cracked. "He said she took shrapnel meant for the dog. He said she had to be physically restrained from going back for the casualties." Tears ran down his face. He said her call sign was Ghost because nobody ever saw her coming, and nobody could believe what she'd done after she left. Naomi pushed through the crowd, tablet extended toward Forrester. On the screen, a classified file. Photo of a younger Fern in full combat gear, SEAL trident on her chest, K9 vest over tactical armor. Text marked, "Classified, DevGru K9 unit, eyes only, clearance level Omega." Forrester took the tablet with shaking hands, read in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Master Chief Petty Officer Fern Archer, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, K9 unit handler and lead instructor, 12 combat deployments. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, classified locations, Purple Heart with 3 oak leaf clusters, Bronze Star with Valor device, Navy Cross." He paused, his voice breaking. "Navy Cross, 3rd highest decoration for valor in combat, awarded for..." He had to stop and clear his throat. "For actions above and beyond the call of duty while under enemy fire, resulting in the rescue of multiple wounded personnel and their K9 partners at extreme personal risk." The weight of those words pressed down on everyone present. Navy Cross. Fewer than 7,000 had been awarded in the entire history of the United States military. Fern hadn't moved. Her hands still maintained pressure on Rex's wound. Her focus remained on the dog. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, steady. "He needs surgical intervention within 30 minutes, preferably sooner. Are we going to stand here talking, or are we going to save his life?" The spell broke. Hugo moved instantly, taking over the medical care with newfound respect and efficiency. 2 trainers carefully lifted the collapsed obstacle, while another stabilized Rex's spine. Within 90 seconds, they had him on a gurney and moving toward the veterinary clinic at a run. Fern stood slowly. Blood covered her hands and forearms. Her torn shirt hung loose, the full tattoo still visible to everyone present. She looked at Forrester. "Permission to clean up and return to duty, sir." Forrester stared at her. "Master Chief, we had no idea you were here. If I'd known, you would have treated me differently." Fern's voice carried no accusation, just statement of fact. "That's why I didn't advertise. I came here to work, not to be saluted." "But why?" Cassian's voice was hoarse. He'd found his words again, but they came out broken. "Why work as maintenance? Why hide your identity? You're a Master Chief. You're a SEAL. You're..." He gestured helplessly at her back. "Your Ghost Unit." Fern looked at him with those flat green eyes. Because real warriors don't advertise, Lieutenant Commander. Because the work matters more than the recognition. And because someone needs to clean up after the people who spend all their time reminding others of their rank. The barb landed like a physical blow. Cassian flinched. She turned away, heading toward the maintenance building. The 47 dogs fell into formation around her. Not the defensive diamond anymore. Now they moved like an honor guard, flanking her on both sides, moving at her pace. Not because she commanded them, because they chose to. Cairo Jr., the 4-year-old German shepherd descended from the legendary dog that participated in the Bin Laden raid, walked directly beside her, his head level with her hand. Every few steps, his nose touched her palm, a gesture of connection, of recognition, of something that transcended training and entered the realm of bond. The crowd parted as she walked. Some saluted, some just watched. All of them were reevaluating everything they thought they knew about rank, about respect, about what it meant to serve. Sapphire had disappeared entirely. Nobody noticed when she left. Nobody cared. Dylan stood frozen in place, his instructor badge heavy in his hand. He looked at Arthur. I questioned her. I challenged her to prove herself with weapons handling. I treated her like... He couldn't finish the sentence. Arthur put a hand on his shoulder. We all did. That's the point. She led us. She could have pulled rank at any moment, could have shut down every challenge with 2 words. She didn't. She let us make fools of ourselves until circumstances forced the truth into the open. He watched Fern disappear into the maintenance building. That's what separates real operators from people who just wear the uniform. Real operators don't need to prove anything. They already know what they're worth. Forrester still held Naomi's tablet, staring at Fern's service record. 12 deployments, each one listed simply by date range and theater of operations. No details, no mission descriptions. Everything above his clearance level. The kind of record that tells you someone did things that will never appear in history books. The kind of service that happens in the dark so other people can sleep safely. He made a decision. Naomi, I need a direct line to NavSpec War Command. Now. I need to know if Master Chief Archer is still technically on active reserve status. I need to know if there's any way we can officially bring her back into the training program. And I need to know... He paused. I need to know if anyone's been looking for her, because someone with her skills and experience doesn't just disappear into a maintenance job without a reason. Either she's running from something or she's hiding from something. Either way, we need to know what. Naomi nodded and moved away, already placing calls. Liam approached Forrester cautiously. Sir, permission to speak? Granted. My brother told me something else about the ghost handler. He said she retired because she lost her entire team in a mission that went sideways. He said 6 dogs died in one operation, and she couldn't... His voice broke. She couldn't handle training new partners after that. He said every dog she sees now carries the memory of the ones she lost. Forrester looked toward the maintenance building. That would explain why she's here. Why she took a job that keeps her close to dogs without having to form operational partnerships. Why she works in the background. He was quiet for a moment. She's grieving, and we just forced her back into the spotlight she was hiding from. The injuries Fern sustained during her 12 combat deployments weren't just physical. TBI from IED blasts, hearing loss from sustained firefights, and PTSD from watching teammates fall. These are the hidden costs of service. That's why specialized veteran disability insurance policies exist, providing up to $10,000 monthly for service-connected disabilities rated at 100%. These policies supplement VA benefits, covering mortgage payments, medical treatments not covered by standard health care, and family support during the hardest transitions. For warriors who gave everything, comprehensive disability coverage ensures they and their families never fight alone again. In the veterinary clinic, Hugo worked on Rex with renewed focus and respect. The wound required 22 sutures. The IV line Fern had placed was textbook perfect. Her field assessment had been exactly correct. Rex would make a full recovery because someone with combat trauma experience had been there in the critical first minutes. The day progressed in a strange, subdued fashion. Word spread through the base like wildfire. By 1400 hours, personnel from other departments were finding excuses to walk past the maintenance building, hoping for a glimpse, wanting to see if the stories were true. Fern didn't emerge. She stayed inside, presumably cleaning, doing the job she'd been hired to do. But the 47 dogs knew. They positioned themselves around the maintenance building in a loose perimeter, not blocking access, just present, watching. A silent honor guard for someone they recognized as pack leader, as warrior, as something beyond simple handler or trainer. At 16:30 hours, the base commander arrived, Rear Admiral Patricia Vance, 2-star flag officer, commander of the entire Naval Special Warfare facility. She didn't announce her presence, didn't demand attention. She simply walked to the maintenance building and knocked on the door. Fern answered, still in her torn uniform, still covered in dried blood. The Admiral saluted. "Master Chief Archer, a word, if you're willing." Fern stepped outside, returned the salute with the kind of precision that comes from years of military bearing, said nothing, just waited. "I received a call from Nav Spec War Command about 2 hours ago," the Admiral said. "Your service record is still sealed above my clearance level. That tells me things I can't officially acknowledge. But it also tells me that you're someone we need here, someone who could reshape how we train the next generation of handlers and canine operators." Fern's expression didn't change. "I'm here to work maintenance, ma'am." "You're here to hide," the Admiral said gently, "and I understand why. I've read the parts of your record I have access to. I know about Kandahar. I know you lost your team. I know you blame yourself, even though the after-action report cleared you of any wrongdoing and credited you with preventing a complete catastrophe." Fern's jaw tightened, the only sign that the words had impact. "I'm not ordering you to do anything," the Admiral continued. "You've given enough, more than enough. But I'm asking you to consider something. Those 47 dogs out there, 12 of them you personally trained, 35 of them are descended from dogs you trained or dogs that served alongside your teams. They remember, not consciously perhaps, but genetically, behaviorally. You're part of their lineage." She gestured toward the training yard where personnel were slowly returning to normal operations. "We're losing institutional knowledge, the old ways, the methods that actually work versus the methods that look good on paper. I have trainers with impeccable credentials who can't inspire dogs the way you did in 5 minutes this morning. I have handlers graduating who will deploy without understanding the reality of combat canine operations because everyone who really knows is either dead, retired, or hiding in maintenance closets." Fern looked at the ground, at the dogs surrounding the building, at Cairo Jr., who sat directly in front of her with absolute attention. "Think about it," the Admiral said. "No pressure, no timeline, but know that if you're willing, I will personally create a position for you. Senior Master Trainer, design your own curriculum, set your own terms, name your own price." "I don't need money," Fern said quietly. "I work maintenance because the pay is enough and the job is simple." "Then do it for them," the Admiral pointed at the dogs. "Do it because the next generation of handlers deserves to learn from someone who actually understands the bond. Do it because somewhere, right now, there's a kid fresh out of handler school who's about to deploy into a situation where his life will depend on a dog he barely knows. And maybe, just maybe, if you teach his instructors the right way, that kid comes home alive." The Admiral saluted again, turned to leave, paused. "For what it's worth, Master Chief, thank you, for your service, for your sacrifice, and for reminding all of us what true humility looks like in a warrior." She walked away, leaving Fern standing in the doorway of the maintenance building, surrounded by 47 dogs who refused to leave her side. The sun was setting now, 17:45 hours. The training yard had mostly cleared, but a few people remained. Arthur, Dylan, Daisy, Liam, Ivan. They stood at a respectful distance, not approaching, just present, bearing witness. Fern looked at them, at the dogs, at the facility that had become her hiding place, and was now threatening to become something else entirely, something that required her to be visible again, to teach, to lead, to remember everything she'd been trying to forget. Cairo Jr. pressed against her leg, his weight solid and warm, his presence a reminder that some bonds transcended trauma, that some connections were worth the pain of maintaining them. She closed her eyes, took a breath, made a decision she wasn't ready to make. But before anyone could know what that decision was, before she could speak or move or signal her choice, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Not the simple vibration of a text message, the specific pattern of an encrypted call. 3 short pulses, 2 long, 1 short. She pulled it out, looked at the screen. Unknown number, scrambled identifier. The kind of call that civilians never receive, and most military personnel only encounter in training scenarios. She answered, "Archer." The voice on the other end was distorted, run through encryption layers that made it sound mechanical and distant. "Ghost 7, we have a situation." Everyone watched her face, watched the change that came over her expression. The shift from uncertain civilian to something harder, something that had spent years in places where hesitation meant death. "I'm retired," she said flatly. "So you've said. 3 times now, but this isn't a request for service. This is a notification. Cairo's offspring is ready for deployment. Advanced threat environment, hostile territory. High-value target requiring specialized extraction. Ethiopia, Addis Ababa region. Wheels up in 72 hours. Fern looked at Cairo Jr. The dog's ears were forward, alert, like he understood something in her posture, something in the tension that radiated from her body. "I'm not going back," Fern said into the phone. "The target is a group of 6 humanitarian workers being held by a militant faction. 3 of them are children. Intelligence indicates they have 48 hours before execution for propaganda purposes. You're the only handler with regional operational experience. You're the only one who's worked with Cairo's lineage in that specific environment. And you're the only one those dogs will follow into terrain where one mistake means everyone dies." The words hung in the air. Fern's finger hovered over the disconnect button. The voice continued, relentless. "I know what you're thinking. You've given enough. You've lost enough. Walk away and nobody will judge you. But somewhere in Ethiopia right now, there are 3 children who don't know they have 48 hours left to live. And the only person who might be able to change that is standing in a maintenance building, trying to pretend she's not still a warrior." Fern closed her eyes. Her free hand dropped to Cairo Jr.'s head. The dog leaned into her touch, unwavering and absolute in his trust. The world narrowed to this moment, this choice, this impossible decision between the safety of anonymity and the weight of capability, between the trauma she was trying to heal and the lives she might be able to save. She opened her eyes, looked at the people still watching from across the yard, at the dogs who'd refused to leave her side, at the facility that held both everything she'd lost and everything she might become. She brought the phone back to her ear. "Send coordinates." She disconnected, stood in the doorway for one more moment. Then she looked at Cairo Jr. "Looks like you're about to find out what your father was famous for." The dog's tail wagged, once, sharp and certain. And in that moment, everyone watching understood. Ghost Unit wasn't a legend. It wasn't a story. It was standing right in front of them, covered in blood and dog hair, and the weight of choices most people never have to make. The question wasn't whether Fern Archer was really a SEAL. The question was whether anyone was ready for what happened when warriors like her decided to stop hiding. The answer would come in 72 hours, in Ethiopia, where 3 children's lives hung in the balance, and one woman with 12 paw prints tattooed on her back was about to prove that retirement is just a word. But that's a story for another time. The 72 hours didn't pass quietly. By 0600 the next morning, the entire Naval Base San Diego knew. Not just rumors, not whispered speculation. Confirmed facts transmitted through official channels and unofficial networks with equal speed. Master Chief Petty Officer Fern Archer, DevGru K9, Ghost Unit 7, 12 combat deployments, Navy Cross recipient, living legend working maintenance for 3 months while everyone walked past her like she was invisible. The base commander's office had been fielding calls since 0430. Nav Spec War wanted to know why nobody had identified her. Pentagon liaisons wanted briefings. Public affairs officers wanted to control the narrative before it exploded across social media. Too late, the screenshots were already viral. And somewhere in a classified facility that officially didn't exist, someone was asking how a Ghost Unit operator had gone to ground without proper oversight. But Fern wasn't in the maintenance building anymore. She stood in Colonel Forrester's office at 0700 hours, wearing the same torn, blood-stained uniform from yesterday. She hadn't gone home, hadn't changed, hadn't slept. She'd spent the night in the kennels with the 47 dogs, running her hands through their fur, whispering to them in languages most Americans didn't speak, preparing herself for what came next. Forrester sat behind his desk, looking older than his 58 years. "Master Chief, I need you to understand something before we proceed. The Admiral has authorized me to offer you whatever you need. Training position, advisory role, consulting contract, name your terms." Fern remained at attention. "Sir, with respect, I need 3 things. First, access to Cairo Jr. for the next 72 hours. Full access, no oversight, no questions about training methods. Granted. Second, I need my request for emergency leave to be processed immediately. Personal reasons, no details required. Forrester's expression tightened. He wasn't stupid. He knew exactly what personal reasons meant when a ghost unit operator got an encrypted phone call and suddenly needed to leave the country. I can't officially authorize what I think you're planning. Then don't authorize it officially, sir. They stared at each other. Two military professionals who understood the gap between what regulations said and what reality required. Your leave request will be approved, Forrester said finally. I'll personally sign it. But Master Chief, when you come back, if you come back, we need to have a serious conversation about your future here. Understood, sir? Third thing, Fern's expression didn't change. I need Lieutenant Commander Cassian and his entire chain of command to understand something. What happened yesterday wasn't about me. It was about respect, about treating people with dignity regardless of their job title. I don't care what happens to Cassian personally, but I need the culture here to change. I need maintenance workers and contractors and junior enlisted to be treated like human beings instead of obstacles. Forrester nodded slowly. Already in motion. Cassian is being reassigned pending investigation. Not because of you specifically, but because his conduct revealed systematic problems with how this facility operates. We're implementing mandatory training, policy reviews, the works. He paused. You've caused quite the earthquake, Master Chief. That wasn't my intention, sir. I know. That's what makes it powerful. Fern saluted and turned to leave. Master Chief? She paused at the door. Bring yourself back alive. That's an order from someone who doesn't technically have authority to give you orders, but I'm giving it anyway. Fern looked back. For the first time since the reveal, something that might have been a smile touched the corner of her mouth. I'll do my best, sir. We're approaching the moment that will screenshot across every military forum for months. But first, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This channel digs up the stories that mainstream media won't touch, the real bonds between warriors and the animals who serve beside them. Subscribe and bell icon now, because what's about to be revealed will hit you like a tactical breach. She left the admin building and walked directly to the kennels. The morning sun painted everything gold and orange. The facility was already buzzing with activity, but people moved differently around her now. Not avoiding her, not crowding her, just giving her space. Respect manifested as distance. Cairo Jr. waited at the kennel entrance. He'd been sitting there since she'd left him 20 minutes ago. Patient, certain she would return. When he saw her, his tail moved in a slow, measured wag. Not the frantic excitement of a pet. The focused acknowledgement of a working partner, recognizing their handler. You ready to work? Fern asked quietly. The dog stood, walked to her side, sat at attention with his shoulder against her leg. Ready. They spent the next 2 days in a private section of the training facility that most personnel didn't even know existed. A place where special operations units practiced scenarios too classified to conduct in public view. Fern had the access codes, had always had them, just never used them until now. Nobody knew exactly what she did during those 2 days. The area was soundproofed, the entrances monitored. But people saw her emerge at odd hours to grab food from the mess hall, always in workout gear, always covered in sweat, always with Cairo Jr. at her side, moving in perfect synchronization. Daisy tried to approach her once, caught her at 1900 hours near the equipment shed. Master Chief? I know you're busy, but I just wanted to say... Fern stopped, turned. Her eyes weren't flat anymore. They were sharp, focused, the eyes of someone preparing for combat. Say it fast. Daisy swallowed. I want to learn from you. When you get back from wherever you're going, I want to understand what you understand about K9 operations. I want to be better. Fern studied her, really looked at her, saw something in the young seaman's face that reminded her of herself 20 years ago. Hungry, determined, naive about what that determination would cost. You sure about that? Fern asked. Because what I do, what I've done, it changes you. You can't unsee things, can't unknow things. The bond you form with a working dog in combat isn't like anything you have experienced. And when you lose them, she paused. When you lose them, pieces of you go with them that you never get back. Daisy didn't flinch. I understand, Master Chief. No, you don't. But maybe that's okay. Nobody understands until they live it. Fern reached out and did something unexpected. She adjusted Daisy's collar, straightened her uniform with the practiced efficiency of a senior enlisted correcting a junior sailor, a gesture of mentorship, of acceptance. When I get back, we'll talk, really talk, about what it means to be a handler, about sacrifice and partnership, and the weight of putting a dog in harm's way because the mission requires it. Tears appeared in Daisy's eyes. Thank you, Master Chief. Don't thank me yet. You might hate what I teach you. Fern walked away. Cairo Jr. followed. They disappeared back into the classified training area and didn't emerge until the 72 hours were almost up. On the third day, at 0500 hours, a nondescript black SUV pulled up to the base's auxiliary entrance. The driver didn't identify himself, didn't need to. Fern threw a small duffel bag in the back and climbed in. Cairo Jr. jumped in beside her without hesitation. The vehicle drove away, heading toward Naval Air Station North Island, heading toward a plane that officially didn't exist on any flight manifest, heading toward Ethiopia and 6 hostages and 48 hours that had already started counting down. But back at the training facility, life continued, changed, different. Dylan stood in front of his advanced handler class at 0800 hours. 22 students. All of them had heard the stories, all of them watching him differently now, wondering if he'd learned anything from being humbled by a maintenance worker who turned out to be a legend. He had. Today's lesson, he began, is about assumptions, about respect, about understanding that rank and skill don't always present themselves the way you expect. He pulled out his phone, showed them the screenshot that was circulating everywhere. Fern's exposed back, the tattoo, the scars, the proof. 3 days ago, I challenged a woman to prove her competency with weapons handling. I gave her a test designed to make her fail so I could feel superior. She passed it so completely that I looked like an amateur. The class was silent. Here's what I learned, Dylan continued. Real expertise doesn't announce itself. Real skill doesn't need validation. And real warriors, the ones who have actually been there, done things we can't imagine, they don't waste time proving themselves to people who wouldn't understand anyway. He set down his phone. Master Chief Archer worked here for 3 months. She cleaned our floors. She emptied our trash. She watched us strut around like we were special because we wore instructor badges. And the whole time, she had more operational experience than everyone in this facility combined. He looked at each student individually. So, here's your assignment. Before you ever challenge someone's competency, before you ever assume you're better than someone because of their job, or their rank, or their appearance, remember this moment. Remember that the most dangerous operator you'll ever meet might be the one you least expect. And treat everyone, with the respect you'd give to someone who might actually be a Navy Cross recipient hiding in plain sight. The class absorbed that in silence. One student raised his hand. Sergeant Fletcher, is it true she's deploying again? The rumors say... I don't know anything about Master Chief Archer's current status, Dylan cut him off. And if I did, I wouldn't discuss it. Operational security isn't a suggestion, it's a requirement. What I will say is this. If she is somewhere doing something, then whoever needs her made the right call, because there's nobody better at what she does. Across the facility, Arthur Fraser sat in his small office reviewing training records. He'd been at this job for 28 years, had seen thousands of handlers come through the program, had trained some of the best K-9 operators in the military, but he'd never seen anything like what Fern Archer had demonstrated in those few minutes yesterday morning. The diamond defensive formation, the hand signals, the absolute trust 47 dogs placed in her without hesitation. It bothered him. Not because she was better than him, he'd made peace with that immediately, but because it meant there were entire levels of K-9 operations that he didn't know existed, capabilities that were kept classified, methods that were never shared with the conventional training community. His phone rang. Forrester. Arthur, I need your assessment. If we bring Master Chief Archer on as Senior Master Trainer, what would you recommend for her program structure? Arthur leaned back in his chair. Sir, with respect, I don't think we can structure her program. I think we give her complete autonomy and learn from what she builds. She operates on a level that our current curriculum doesn't address. Trying to fit her into our framework would be like asking a fighter pilot to teach driver's ed. That's what I thought you'd say. But sir, if she does come back and if she does agree to teach, I want to be in those classes. I don't care if it makes me look like an amateur. I don't care if I have to sit next to 20-year-olds taking notes. I've spent 3 decades thinking I understood canine operations, and yesterday I learned I've barely scratched the surface. Noted. I'll make sure you have access to whatever program she develops. Forrester paused. If she comes back. She'll come back, sir. How can you be sure? Because she left 47 dogs here who love her. Because she made a promise to a young seaman who wants to learn. And because warriors like Master Chief Archer don't stay gone. They might hide. They might need time. But they always come back to where they're needed. Arthur looked at a photo on his desk. Himself with a military working dog from his deployment to Afghanistan in 2003. They come back because that's who they are. It's not something they choose. It's something they can't escape. The advanced canine handling skills Fern demonstrated weren't learned in basic training. They came from elite certification programs that cost between $15,000 and $40,000 and take 18 to 24 months to complete. These specialized programs teach tactical canine deployment, combat veterinary medicine, behavioral psychology, explosive detection, and classified techniques used by special operations forces worldwide. Graduates work for federal agencies, private military contractors, and elite law enforcement units earning between $80,000 and $150,000 annually. For those with the dedication, professional canine handler certification opens doors to careers that forge unbreakable bonds between warrior and animal. In the maintenance building, a new worker started on the 4th day. A man in his 40s named Paul transferred from another facility. He approached the job with professional detachment, did his work, kept his head down, didn't talk much. But on his 2nd day, one of the younger maintenance workers, a kid fresh out of high school named Marcus, made a comment. Man, can you believe the woman who had this job before you was some kind of super soldier? I walked past her like 100 times. Never knew. Paul paused in his mopping. Maybe that's the point. What do you mean? I mean, maybe the fact that you walked past her 100 times and never knew says more about you than her. Paul resumed mopping. People like that, they don't do what they do for recognition. They do it because it needs doing. And when they're done, when they've given everything they have to give, sometimes all they want is to be left alone, to do simple work, to not be stared at or thanked or reminded of everything they've lost. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You talk like you know people like that. I was Army. 2 deployments, Iraq. I knew a few operators, not as high level as her, but enough to understand. Paul wrung out his mop. The best ones, they're ghosts. You work next to them for months and never know what they've done. And when you finally find out, it changes how you see everything. Did it change how you work? Paul smiled slightly. Yeah, it did. Made me realize that every job matters, that mopping a floor can be done with as much dedication as conducting a raid, that there's dignity in any work if you bring your full self to it. He looked at Marcus. Master Chief Archer was probably a better maintenance worker than most people will ever be at anything. Not because the work was special, but because she's the kind of person who gives her full effort to whatever she does. That's what makes someone elite, not the job, the approach. Marcus thought about that while they worked in silence. 3 days passed, then 4, then a week. Nobody heard from Fern. No updates, no communication. Officially, she was on emergency leave for personal reasons. Unofficially, people whispered about Ethiopia, about hostages, about missions that would never be acknowledged. The 47 dogs knew something was wrong. They became restless. Cairo Jr. especially. He stopped eating for 2 days. Just sat at the kennel entrance staring at the maintenance building where he'd last seen her. The vet cleared him physically. This wasn't illness. This was emotional distress. This was a working dog missing his partner. Dylan tried working with him. Come on, Cairo. Let's train. Let's do something. The dog obeyed mechanically, followed commands, performed tasks, but there was no spirit in it, no fire. He was going through motions because he was trained to obey, not because he wanted to. He's grieving, Arthur said, watching from the sideline. He thinks she's not coming back. How can you tell? Because I've seen it before. When handlers are killed in action, their dogs go through this. They wait, they watch, they hope. And when enough time passes without their person returning, something in them shuts down. Arthur's voice was heavy. It breaks them in ways that are hard to fix. But Master Chief isn't dead. She's just deployed. Dogs don't understand deployment. They understand present or absent, here or gone. And Cairo Jr. can't smell her anymore. can't hear her, can't feel her presence. So, some part of him is preparing for the possibility that she's gone forever. Dylan looked at the dog sitting at attention, but with none of his usual engagement. That's horrible. That's the cost of the bond. The deeper the connection, the more it hurts when it's severed, even temporarily. Arthur walked toward Cairo Jr. slowly, sat down on the ground beside him, didn't touch him, just sat there. The question is whether she comes back before he gives up hope. Because once a working dog loses faith that their partner will return, bringing them back from that is nearly impossible. They protect themselves by shutting down, by not caring as much, by not trusting as deeply. How long do we have? No way to know. Every dog is different, but I'd say we're running out of time. Arthur reached out carefully and touched Cairo Jr.'s head. The dog didn't react. Come back, Master Chief. Your partner needs you. Days turned into 2 weeks, then 3. The facility had settled into a new normal. Cassian was gone, reassigned to a desk job at a different installation pending full review. Sapphire had resigned entirely, her letter of separation citing personal reasons. But everyone knew the truth. Hugo had restructured the veterinary medical training to include more field protocols. Dylan had completely overhauled his instruction methods to emphasize humility and respect. But Cairo Jr. continued to decline. He ate because trainers hand-fed him. He worked because he was commanded. But the light in his eyes had dimmed. The enthusiasm that characterized great working dogs had faded. Daisy spent her off-duty hours sitting with him, just being present. She's coming back, she told him repeatedly. Master Chief wouldn't abandon you. She's going to come back. The dog didn't react, just stared at nothing. On day 23 at 1400 hours, Forrester's phone rang. Unknown number, encrypted line. Colonel Forrester speaking. Sir, this is Master Chief Archer, requesting permission to return to base. Forrester nearly dropped the phone. Master Chief, where are you? Are you safe? I'm at North Island, just landed. I have Cairo Jr.'s partner with me, requesting immediate transport to facility and access to kennels. Granted, I'll send a vehicle immediately. Master Chief, the hostages, 6 rescued, 0 casualties on our side, mission complete. I'll brief you when I arrive if you have the clearance. Otherwise, it stays classified. Understood. Welcome home, Master Chief. The call ended. Forrester sat for a moment, processing. Then he grabbed his radio. All personnel, this is Colonel Forrester. Master Chief Archer is returning to base within the hour. I want minimal disruption. Give her space. Do not crowd her. Do not bombard her with questions. Let her reconnect with her team and decompress. That is all. The message rippled through the facility. People paused in their work, exchanged glances. The legend was coming home. Daisy happened to be in the kennels when she heard. She went immediately to Cairo Jr. Did you hear that? She's coming back. I told you. For the first time in 3 weeks, Cairo Jr.'s ears perked up. His head lifted. His nose tested the air like he might catch her scent across the miles. Hold on a little longer, Daisy whispered. She's almost here. The SUV arrived at 15:20 hours. Fern climbed out first. She looked thinner, tired. Her civilian clothes, jeans and a simple shirt, hung loose on her frame, but she was alive, whole, walking under her own power. Cairo Jr. came out of the kennel second, not the same dog who had left. This Cairo was a warrior now, scarred on his right shoulder, moving with the careful confidence of an animal that had seen combat and survived. His eyes held something different, harder, more aware. The 2 Cairo dogs saw each other from across the yard. Time stopped. Then they moved, not running, not rushing, just walking with deliberate purpose toward each other. When they met in the center of the yard, they didn't sniff or play or do any of the things normal dogs do. They stood side by side, shoulders touching, facing the same direction. 2 halves of the same unit, 2 parts of the same legacy. And Cairo Jr. changed. The light came back. The engagement returned. In the presence of his counterpart, his partner who had gone to war and come back, he understood that his person had returned too, that the waiting was over, that the bond hadn't been broken. Fern walked toward them slowly. Every step looked like it cost her something. Not physical pain, emotional weight. The burden of what she'd done, what she'd seen, what she'd had to become again after 3 months of trying to be someone else. When she reached the dogs, she knelt, both Kairos pressed against her, not frantically, just solidly, anchoring her, reminding her she was home. She wrapped her arms around them and closed her eyes. Nobody could see her face, but her shoulders shook, just for a moment, just long enough for the wall she'd been holding in place for 3 weeks to crack slightly and let out a fraction of the pressure. Then she stood, pulled herself together, became Master Chief Petty Officer Fern Archer again instead of just Fern. The warrior instead of the woman trying to hide from being a warrior. She looked across the yard and saw them. Dylan, Arthur, Hugo, Liam, Ivan, Daisy, all keeping their distance like Forrester had ordered, all clearly wanting to approach, all respecting her need for space. She raised one hand, a small wave, acknowledgement. Thank you for waiting, thank you for caring, thank you for understanding. Then she walked toward the classified training area with both dogs flanking her. She needed time, needed quiet, needed to process everything that had happened in Ethiopia before she could face questions and debriefings and the weight of other people's expectations. If this story gave you chills, we've got 20 more just like it, waiting in the playlist that just popped up on your screen. Stories of hidden heroes, silent warriors, and the dogs who never forget. Click that playlist now, or hit the next video that's about to autoplay, because once you go down this rabbit hole of real military respect and loyalty, there's no coming back. The formal ceremony happened 1 week later. The Admiral insisted. Not for Fern's benefit. She would have been happy to skip it entirely, but for the facility, for the personnel who needed visible proof that the culture was changing. That respect would be given where it was earned, regardless of job title or rank. They gathered in the main training yard at 0900 hours. 200 people, more than just the K9 facility. Personnel from across the base who'd heard the stories and wanted to witness this moment. The Admiral stood at a podium. Fern stood beside her in dress uniform. The Navy service dress blues that she hadn't worn in 4 years. Every ribbon and medal properly placed. The SEAL trident gleaming above her ribbons. The Master Chief Petty Officer rank insignia on her sleeves. She looked uncomfortable, like the uniform was a costume she no longer fit into. But she wore it because the Admiral had asked. Because sometimes warriors serve by being visible instead of hidden. We gather today, the Admiral began, not to celebrate heroism, because the actions that earned Master Chief Archer her decorations remain classified and always will. We gather to acknowledge something more fundamental, the importance of respect, the value of humility, the understanding that greatness doesn't announce itself. She gestured to Fern. 3 months ago, this warrior joined our facility as a maintenance worker. She did her job well. She kept her head down. She asked for nothing. And we walked past her every single day without seeing her, without recognizing what stood in front of us. That failure is on us. That blindness is our responsibility to fix. The Admiral pulled out a plaque, simple design, wood and brass, engraved with words that would hang in the facility's main hall. From this day forward, this facility will be known as the Master Chief Fern Archer K9 Scene Training Excellence Center. Not because Master Chief sought this recognition, she actively argued against it, but because future generations of handlers need to understand what excellence actually looks like. They need to know that the greatest warrior they'll ever meet might be the one cleaning their floors or fixing their equipment or working quietly in the background while everyone else takes credit. She presented the plaque to Fern, who accepted it with visible reluctance. Master Chief Archer has agreed to serve as our senior master trainer and curriculum development advisor. She will design a new program from the ground up. She will train the trainers. She will share knowledge that has never been shared outside classified units. And she will do it on her terms, at her pace, in her way. The Admiral's voice strengthened, which means everyone here will treat her with the respect her rank and experience demand, not because I ordered it, but because anything less would be a disgrace to the uniform we all wear. Applause erupted, genuine, thunderous. People weren't just clapping for Fern, they were clapping for what she represented, for the change she'd forced simply by being herself. Fern stood at attention, accepting the acknowledgement without smiling. When the applause finally faded, she looked at the Admiral. "Permission to speak, ma'am?" "Granted." Fern turned to face the assembled personnel. 200 sets of eyes locked on her. She took a breath, spoke in that quiet voice that somehow carried across the entire yard. "I didn't come here to be thanked. I came here because after losing my team, I couldn't handle the idea of training new partners only to send them into situations where they might die. I came here to hide, to be invisible, to do simple work that didn't require me to care so much that losing would destroy me again. She paused. The silence was absolute. But these 3 weeks in Ethiopia taught me something. Running doesn't work. Hiding doesn't work. Because when the call comes, when there are lives on the line and you have skills that might make the difference, you go, you serve. Not because you want to. Not because it's healed you or fixed you or made you whole again, but because that's what warriors do. We serve when we're needed, even when it costs us everything. She looked at Daisy specifically. So, yes, I'll train the next generation. I'll teach you everything I know, but understand this. What I teach will hurt. It will challenge everything you think you know about K9 operations. It will force you to confront the reality that every time you deploy with a dog, you're risking a life that trusts you completely. And when you lose them, not if, but when, because in this line of work, loss is inevitable, pieces of you will die with them that you'll never get back. Her voice didn't break, didn't waver, just delivered truth like a blade. If you can accept that cost, if you can carry that weight, then I'll make you into the best handlers in the world. I'll teach you skills that will save lives and complete missions that others consider impossible. But if you're here for glory or recognition, or because you think working with dogs is fun, then quit now. Because what I do isn't fun. It's sacrifice. It's partnership. It's accepting that love and loss are so intertwined in this work that you can't have one without the other. She looked back at the Admiral. That's what I have to say, ma'am. The Admiral nodded slowly. Thank you, Master Chief. Class dismissed. People dispersed slowly. Nobody rushed. Everyone processing what they'd just heard. The honesty, the rawness, the complete absence of sugarcoating or motivation, speech cliches. Daisy approached carefully. Master Chief, I still want to learn, even knowing what you just said. Maybe especially because you said it. Fern studied her. Why? Because someone needs to. Because these dogs deserve handlers who understand what you understand. And because... Daisy hesitated. Because I think the only way to honor what you have sacrificed is to be willing to sacrifice the same way, to carry the weight forward, to make sure your team didn't die for nothing. Something shifted in Fern's expression. Not quite a smile, something more complicated. Respect mixed with sadness, mixed with recognition of herself in this young woman standing before her. Okay. 0500 tomorrow. Classified training area. Bring Cairo Jr. We start with the basics. And the basics are going to break your heart before they build you into a handler. Yes, Master Chief. Daisy saluted and walked away. Fern watched her go, seeing echoes of her younger self in every step. Arthur approached next. Master Chief, I meant what I said. I want to sit in on your classes, learn from you. You're a Master Chief yourself, Arthur. You've forgotten more about K9 operations than most people ever learn. That's exactly why I need to learn from you. Because I've been doing this for 28 years, and I just found out there are entire levels of capability I never knew existed. I'm not too proud to admit when I'm outmatched. I'm just proud enough to want to close the gap. Fern extended her hand. Arthur shook it. A gesture of equals recognizing each other's worth. 0600. After I work with Daisy, I'll show you what ghost unit training actually looks like. But, Arthur, fair warning. Some of the techniques I use aren't approved through official channels. They're effective, but they're classified for reasons that have nothing to do with difficulty and everything to do with capability we don't advertise. Understood. And Master Chief, thank you for trusting us enough to teach us. Don't thank me yet. You might hate me before we're done. Arthur laughed, a real laugh. The first moment of genuine levity since this entire situation began. I doubt that very much, Master Chief. The weeks turned into months. The program Fern developed was unlike anything the facility had ever seen. She didn't use standard protocols, didn't follow conventional progression. Instead, she taught something deeper. The psychology of partnership. The language of trust. The skills that couldn't be learned from manuals because they required understanding that only came from experience. Her classes were small, never more than 6 students at a time. She spent hours with each handler, breaking down bad habits, rebuilding foundations, teaching them to see dogs not as tools, but as partners with their own intelligence and agency. The failure rate was high. 50% of students couldn't handle her standards, but the 50% who made it through became exceptional. They moved differently, worked differently, bonded with their dogs on levels that other handlers couldn't replicate. And slowly, carefully, Fern began to heal. Not completely. The scars remained. The memories stayed sharp. But the work gave her purpose. The teaching gave her a way to honor her fallen team by ensuring their knowledge survived, by making sure future handlers had every possible advantage. Cairo Jr. worked alongside her in every class, a living example of what was possible. And beside him, Cairo Sr. returned from Ethiopia with scars and stories that would never be told, but everyone could see in the way he moved. 6 months after her return, Fern stood in the training yard at sunset, 17:45 hours. The golden light painting everything warm and soft. She watched Daisy work with a young Malinois, using techniques Fern had taught her, using signals that weren't in any manual, moving with confidence that came from understanding rather than just memorization. "She's good," Arthur said, appearing at Fern's elbow. "She'll be better. Give her time." "How much time did it take you?" Fern was quiet for a long moment. "I'm still learning. Every dog teaches you something new. Every mission reveals gaps in your knowledge. The moment you think you know everything is the moment you become dangerous. To yourself, to your team, to your partner. That's why you're the best teacher we've ever had, because you don't pretend to have all the answers." "I don't have any answers, Arthur. I just have experience, and scars, and knowledge bought with blood. That's not wisdom, that's just survival." Arthur looked at her, really looked at her, saw the weight she carried, the cost of being Ghost Unit, the price of coming back when others hadn't. "For what it's worth, Master Chief, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you chose to teach instead of hide. I'm glad you let us see what real excellence looks like." Fern didn't respond immediately. She watched Daisy work, watched the young handler demonstrate skills that would keep her alive when she deployed, skills that might bring her home when the mission went wrong. "I didn't choose to teach," Fern said quietly. "I just finally accepted that hiding was another form of dying, that the only way to honor the ones I lost was to make sure their sacrifice meant something, that their skills, their knowledge, their approach to the work survived through me, through the handlers I train, through the dogs who carry their lineage." She gestured toward Cairo Jr. and Cairo Sr., both lying in the shade nearby. "Those dogs, they're not just animals, they're legacy. They're the continuation of something that started decades ago, with handlers whose names nobody remembers, and dogs who died protecting warriors who never came home. And as long as I'm here, as long as I can teach, that legacy continues. That's not heroism. That's obligation." Arthur nodded slowly. "Then I'm honored to be part of that obligation, to learn from it, to carry it forward when my time comes." They stood together in silence, watching the next generation train, watching the sun paint the dogs and handlers in gold, watching the continuation of something that was bigger than any individual. The bond between warrior and animal, the partnership that transcended words and operated on trust so deep it became instinct. And in that moment, Fern understood something she hadn't understood when she first arrived at this facility as a maintenance worker trying to hide from her past. She understood that you can't escape who you are. You can only choose how you use what you've become. She was Ghost Unit, would always be Ghost Unit. The question was never whether she would serve again. The question was how. And teaching these young handlers, sharing this knowledge, making sure the next generation had every possible tool to survive and succeed, that was service too, maybe the most important service she'd ever given. Cairo Jr. lifted his head, looked at her with those intelligent eyes, waiting for whatever came next, ready for the mission, ready for the work, ready because she was ready. She smiled, a real smile this time, small but genuine. "Come on," she said to Arthur, "let's see if Daisy can handle the advanced tactical formation, the one I showed Dylan that first day." "The diamond defensive?" "No, something harder, something I've never taught anyone outside my unit." She walked toward the training area. Time to share the techniques that kept Ghost Unit alive when everyone else said the mission was impossible. Arthur followed, eager, humble, ready to learn from the best. And behind them, the sun set on another day at the Master Chief Fern Archer Canine Training Excellence Center, a place where legends taught the willing, where excellence was standard, where the bond between warrior and dog was honored as sacred, where a woman who had tried to hide discovered that the only way out was through, that the only way to honor the fallen was to ensure the living were prepared, that the only way to heal was to serve. Some warriors retire, some disappear, some fade into history as stories told around campfires. But some warriors, the rarest ones, the most dangerous ones, the ones who understand that service isn't a choice but an identity, they never truly leave. They change forms. They find new missions. They serve in different ways. Ghost Unit 7 was never about one person. It was about an approach, a philosophy, a commitment to excellence that existed independent of rank or recognition. And as long as one handler carried that knowledge forward, as long as one dog learned those techniques, as long as one young warrior stood at dawn with their partner beside them, prepared to face whatever came, Ghost Unit would never die. It would just evolve, transform, continue through the next generation. And somewhere in Ethiopia, 3 children played in a village that almost became their graveyard. They didn't know the name of the warrior who'd extracted them from hostage takers, didn't know about the dog who'd tracked them through hostile territory, didn't know about the Navy Cross recipient who'd come out of retirement one more time because lives were on the line. They just knew they were alive, that someone had come, that warriors still existed who would risk everything for people they'd never met. And that was enough. That was everything. That was what it meant to be Ghost Unit. Silent service, eternal watch, until the end.